Here's the third and final kind of conjunction to be aware of, the correlative conjunction. A correlative conjunction comes in pairs, and there are four most important correlative conjunctions to be aware of: both and, either or, neither nor, not only but also. And the most important thing to be aware of about correlative conjunctions is that they always should be used correctly in pairs. So whenever you begin with both, you need to follow up with and. So both my mother and my father will be coming to the awards banquet. When you begin with either, you need to follow through with or. Neither needs to be completed with nor. And not only needs to be completed with but also. A common mistake that people make is to use one but not the other. The correlative conjunction must be used in its entirety, so whenever you use the first part of it, you need to use the second part. So these three types of conjunctions are important to recognize: coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and correlative conjunctions. They fit into different kinds of sentences and need to be followed, used according to certain specific rules. For this exercise, your job was simply to identify the conjunctions and the prepositions that appear in these sentences. Let's start with sentence 1. If gasoline prices keep rising, driving to work will become more and more expensive. Well, there are two conjunctions in this sentence. The sentence begins with a subordinating conjunction, if. That's one of the most common subordinating conjunctions. It introduces a clause which is a subordinate clause, a clause that can't stand alone as a sentence. If gasoline prices keep rising, that can't stand alone as a sentence. It's a subordinate clause, and the word that introduces it is a subordinating conjunction, if. The other conjunction is and. Remember that there are 7 coordinating conjunctions which connect words or phrases or clauses that are more or less equal in importance. Here, and is connecting the word more and more expensive. And is the most common of the 7 coordinating conjunctions. So that's the second conjunction that appears in this sentence. There's one preposition, to, driving to work. Remember that a preposition always introduces a prepositional phrase, and what follows the preposition is a noun or a pronoun. In this case, work is a noun. Work is one of those words that can be used as more than one part of speech. Work is often used as a verb. When you say, I work in the garden, you are using it as a verb because it describes action. In this case, driving to work uses work as a noun. Here, in this case, it almost describes a place. That's where you are driving to, work. So work is a noun in this case. It's the object of the preposition to. The whole thing is the prepositional phrase, to work. So to is the preposition here. Let's look at the next sentence. In my opinion, Picasso was the greatest painter of the 20th century and one of the greatest of any era. There's just one conjunction in this sentence. It's the common coordinating conjunction, and. It appears near the end of the sentence. However, there are 4 prepositions, and in fact, prepositions often appear in large numbers in sentences. Many sentences have several prepositional phrases, and this sentence illustrates that. In my opinion is the first prepositional phrase. In is the preposition. Of the 20th century is a prepositional phrase, beginning with the preposition of and ending with the noun century. Of the greatest is another prepositional phrase, and of any era is a prepositional phrase. So the 4 prepositions here are in, of, and of. Notice that this sentence includes 4 prepositional phrases, 3 of which begin with the preposition of, and yet the sentence doesn't sound terribly repetitive or awkward, does it? In my opinion, Picasso was the greatest painter of the 20th century and one of the greatest of any era. It sounds fine. And that illustrates the fact that in English, it's easy to use several prepositional phrases in a sentence and create a sentence whose meaning is clear and which sounds perfectly correct and easy to read. So there's one of the lessons. of this particular program that prepositional phrases are very versatile and are good to use to express complicated meanings in English. Here's our third sentence. Neither the coach nor the players could explain the dismal performance turned in by the soccer team against their local rivals. This sentence you might have found a little more tricky. There is a conjunction in this sentence that might have been a little difficult for you to recognize. This is a correlative conjunction. Remember, those are conjunctions that work in pairs, and the correlative conjunction appears near the beginning of the sentence, neither nor. Remember, we said that when you use neither, you have to always follow up with nor. Those two words always belong together, so when you begin with neither, you need to use nor within a few words. So in this sentence, the correlative conjunction neither nor has been used correctly. Neither the coach nor the players. The correlative conjunction in this case is being used to connect two nouns, coach and players. We don't have any other conjunctions in the sentence, but we do have two prepositions, introducing, of course, prepositional phrases. By is the first preposition, introducing the prepositional phrase by the soccer team, and against their local rivals. Against is the preposition, and against their local rivals is the prepositional phrase. You might have been confused by the use of the word in. The word in can sometimes be a preposition. You could say, in my house, and there you have a prepositional phrase beginning with the preposition in and ending with the noun house. However, in this sentence, the word in is actually part of an idiomatic phrase. I use that expression, although I haven't used the word idiomatic previously in this program. In this case, the sentence refers to the dismal performance turned in by the soccer team against their local rivals. I think you can hear that the word in is really linked here to the verb turned. And together, the word turned in, or that phrase, creates a kind of a verbal idiom, which means the performance registered by the soccer team, or the performance that the soccer team gave that day. So turned in, rather than in being a preposition introducing a prepositional phrase, turned in instead is kind of a verbal phrase, idiomatic, meaning that's just an expression that's used in English, and the word in this case, is not being used as a preposition, but rather is connected to the verb turned, and the whole thing becomes a verbal idiom with a particular meaning, the two words being connected almost as one thing. So the word in there might have been tempting to be marked as a preposition, but the way it's used in this sentence, it really doesn't operate that way. Remember, a preposition would always be followed by a noun, which isn't the case here. Our next sentence. According to most surveys, parents usually prefer sending their children to schools located in the neighborhoods where they live. Well, there are two clauses here, and the second clause is introduced by a subordinating conjunction. Remember that a clause is any group of words that includes a subject and a verb. And this sentence ends with the clause, where they live. That's a subordinate clause. It contains the verb live, the subject they, and it begins with the subordinating conjunction where. Because of that subordinating conjunction, this clause can't stand alone as a sentence. You couldn't say where they live and leave that alone as a sentence. The word that begins it, where, is the subordinating conjunction, which turns it into a subordinate clause. There are also three prepositions in this sentence, and the first one is made up of more than one word, according to. That introduces the prepositional phrase, according to most surveys. The noun surveys concludes the prepositional phrase, and according to, those two words work together as one preposition. To is another preposition, to schools, and in the neighborhoods, is the third and final preposition in this sentence. Now our last example. We missed the last bus of the night, so we traveled to Oakland by taxi instead. In this sentence, we have two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. The first clause is, we missed the last bus of the night. The second clause is, we traveled to Oakland by taxi instead. Both are independent clauses because each could stand alone as a sentence. The two clauses are linked by a coordinating conjunction. So, remember there are just 7 coordinating conjunctions: and, but, or, nor, for, yet, and so. And your choice of which one to use will depend on the meaning of the sentence. Here, the word so makes sense. And remember that coordinating conjunctions link two things that are more or less equal in importance or meaning, and that's the case here. In addition, the sentence contains 3 prepositions: of in the prepositional phrase of the night, to in to Oakland, and by in by taxi. So there's 1 coordinating conjunction and 3 prepositions in this sentence.